All right, all set.
Awesome. All right. Hello, everyone. Our speaker today is Mr. Germaine Watkins. He has had a love of photography that started as a young child. He began developing his skills at Manchester Craftsmen Guild during high school, and he continued his education at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, where he received his bachelor's in communications media. Germaine returned to MCG and is currently employed as a photography teaching artist mentor. A list of his photography showings include Pittsburgh Black Photographers Group, Pittsburgh Black Media Federation, and many others. He most enjoys taking tranquil photographs both outdoors as well as in the portrait studio. Everyone, please give Mr. Germaine a warm welcome.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you all for having me here. Thank you very much. So should I just jump right into it? Okay, all right. So I am Jermaine Watkins, and I'm going to start sharing, if I can do this. And I'll go to my presentation. Share sound. Sure, I don't have any sound in there, but we'll start to play. So as mentioned from my bio, I am from the Manchester Craftsmen Guild. I've been teaching photography for over a couple decades now, I'll just say. And yes, I love photography and I've been doing it for quite a while. And so within this presentation, I'm going to talk to you about me and how I came to doing photography. So before we do all of that, with the Manchester Craftsmen Guild, we also have our Bidwell Training Center. And these are some images that I've taken throughout the course of being down here. And with our Bidwell Training Center, they have an entity which includes culinary arts. And so it's taking plates of them and they do some things that are involved in the community as well. With them doing the culinary arts, I've gotten the calls quite a few times of, oh, our students, culinary students, are doing trays of different sorts, like different type of food trays. And so they'll call me up and ask me if I can take pictures for them. And I'm like, sure, I can do that. That's fine. Can I get a taste of something? And they're like, sure, yeah, we'll hook you up. And with the Bidwell lunches down here, the culinary department, they do some really great lunches. And so over the course of decades being down here and being involved with the culinary arts and having some delectables, you get kind of puffy after a while. So. And I love taking pictures that are slow shutter speeds and which incorporate some lights. These are the pans, flashing in the pans. I go to Macedonia Church on a Hill District and I do a lot of recording, video recording for the services. And so this was right before COVID hit. We were just waiting around and playing around with the lights and I had my camera and I was like, oh, well, let me take a picture. And what I like to do is a zooming effect, which is zooming out or zooming in on a subject and causing the lights to make it look like you're in Star Wars or something. Some more examples from downtown. And that one I actually found on my computer. And then when I came here to do the presentation, I was like, oh, lo and behold, there it is right here. And so I placed it behind me so you can actually see the image as well. So I love to travel. And within my travels, I've gone pretty much all across the world. So that's awesome. And to think of it in terms of being in, even being a youngster or younger child, I never thought that I would travel as much as I have. With this pandemic that has squelched that, but I'm looking forward to returning back to traveling. And some of my travels have taken me to Haiti, and we had gone to Haiti as a photography group to look at Haiti and go beyond what you see to report behind the scenes of Haiti. And so behind the headlines. And that was one of the shows that we produced with the different images from Haiti. And so you'll see a couple of more invitations and exhibitions that I did from my Haiti adventures. And so here are some images of Haiti. If you've never been to Haiti, it's gorgeous and it's third world all in the same sentence. There's a lot of times within the structures of reporting about Haiti is very negative and very demeaning of the country, but it's actually a gorgeous place and I highly recommend for anybody to travel there and to experience Haiti itself. And this image was from the Citadel, which is one of the biggest features in Haiti that you can see. They had a lot of people going around with big baskets on their heads. And this one, I had labeled this image, the portable vending machine. And they do have beaches. A lot of people know of the Dominican Republic for their beaches, but Haiti also has beaches because it's on the same big island. And we've gone to Puerto Rico and some other places as well. Yeah, traveled all around the world. And when I was in college, it was interesting because some friends of mine, we were just kicking back and it was coming up to spring break. And we were all thinking, oh, wouldn't it be nice to go somewhere for spring break like other people that are around us that they're doing? Why can't we do it? And then one of us in our group, we were like, why can't we? Why not? And so that was one of the starts of my bug to go and travel. And the second bug that I had caught was my first cruise. I love cruising. I'm not going to cruise anytime soon, but I've been on somewhere around 20 different cruises now. And I just love cruises. That's my favorite mode of transportation for traveling. So within my artwork itself, I love to take pictures that are colorful and I love skyscapes and things like that. And I've also do a lot of weddings and things like that as well. Your commercial freelance type of photography as well. These are some examples. Even taking pictures of a wedding reception down at Heinz Field, which was awesome. Former student of mine got married and asked me to be his photographer. I was like, sure. Those are my nieces and nephews. They're twins. And that's some very quick, brief introduction to like portrait studio work that I've done as well. So going back in time, I got my start with being a photographer because my family, we owned one of these 110 cameras. Didn't look like that, but you get the point where it's a 110 camera. And so with the 110 camera, back in the days in the 70s, to date myself, you would go out taking pictures and you have that roll of film that you take to Giant Eagle or whatever to have processed and to send it back to you. And my family, we were using that camera primarily for like documenting our family itself. And so we didn't really go out and take like a lot of artistic shots or anything. It was just used mainly as like a documentation of family recordings and what have you. And so I got the bug from seeing that being done in my house. And I was like, oh, I want to take pictures too. And so I got to the point where I was pestering my parents because the camera that we had that was like this, the 110 camera, it was like the special gold camera, like don't touch it or I'll beat you type of thing. And so I was like, well, I want to touch it. I want to touch it. And I would take a couple pictures and get in trouble and continue on doing that until they finally found the resources to give me my own camera, which was the Kodak disc camera. And this is back in the early 80s as well, where it had a disc and everyone was like really in awe, like, ooh, this was the new technology. It's a disc. Yeah, not really. It was just film that went around in a circle. So that was my first camera for myself to go out and take pictures and be a little more artistic with my camera taking.
Mr. Jermaine, we have a question in the chat. Do you want to hold them for the end, or should we just fire off as we go?
Sure, you can stop and ask the question. Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So Rabrea said in the chat that she wants to do photography. She said she thinks she knows where to start, but she's not sure. Is there anyone that motivated you other than just seeing your family take pictures?
I'm going to get to that whenever I'm talking about my high school time.
Cool.
But that was my real initiation into photography, was to have my family camera and start taking pictures with that, and then got my own camera. So later on, it developed into something.
Miss Carla usually rolls her eyes with those kind of jokes, but she hears mine all the time. I think yours are a breath of fresh air. So,
yes, I love those photography puns. So every now and then I like to put them in there, just a little jab. But I thought whenever I was growing up as a young student that I actually wanted to be like a mechanical engineer, because I love cars and I love drawing cars. This is not my drawing of the car. I just found this off the internet, but it's so representative of what I was doing as a little kid, drawing the car with the sloped nose in the front and then coming back to the tail and the wheels and everything. So I saw this and I was like, wow, that's me, and represents what I was doing as well as an artist, young artist, drawing cars. And so I love cars and I love anything and everything to do with cars. And I seriously thought that I was going to become an engineer of some sort. But then whenever I got to middle school, I started putzing around and started thinking a little bit more about this engineering thing. And my parents was like, well, with engineers, you need to know a lot of math. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm taking math, and started to take some more advanced math classes, and particularly in middle school, then into high school, whenever things were starting to get a little bit more serious. And me and math don't click. So unfortunately, I start to think about that, and I was like, I need to know my limitations. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll start to think about something else, just because I don't know math and don't really particularly want to go at it in a way that I need to go at it. Back in high school, I did go all the way up into calculus. However, with our calculus class, it was very hard and very just intricate, where the teacher at the time, he kind of gave up on us as a class and was like, oh, forget it. We'll just make this into a study hall. And we're like, okay, that's fine with us. And so I didn't really get calculus as what I needed to get calculus. So with that in mind, I started high school, and my high school was Perry Traditional Academy at the time. It was a traditional academy where you had to be selected to go and also make application to go. And so with being at Perry Traditional Academy, I loved it there, and I started to involve myself in the music and the other arts as well. And so with that, I started to doing a whole bunch of different things, and it became where I started playing the flute. And I'll backtrack a little bit too. Whenever I started playing the flute, that was back in elementary school. And the reason why I became a flute player is because my first instrument that I wanted to take was the cello. And at the time I was going to Clayton Elementary School, which is on the north side. And I lived on the north side towards Charles Street. So I had to walk to school. And my mom was like, okay, so you want to take up the cello. Don't forget, you have to walk to school. So that means that you have to carry that instrument back and forth to school every day. And I thought about it. I was like, you got a good point. So what's the smallest instrument that I can get? And lo and behold, the flute. So that's how I got to start playing the flute. And so started playing the flute, and I loved the flute and got good at it. And then I realized later on in high school that the same figurines were the same for the clarinet, as well as for the piccolo and for the different saxophones. And so you see an image of me playing a saxophone there, and that was in the high school band, and I became drum major along with 2 other students at the time as well. So I was playing my saxophone on the field as well as my flute. So I have my flute in the bell of the saxophone, be playing on a saxophone, and then stop playing the sax, pick up the flute and start playing the flute. And the reason why I started playing the saxophones because whenever I was playing the flute, I couldn't be heard. And I was like, come on now, people, y'all need to hear this, hear what I'm playing. This is awesome. How can somebody hear me? And so that's why I picked up the saxophone, because it's a honking horn. And so it's very nice and loud. And so being in high school, I was on a marching band, and I was in the honor roll on the National Honor Society, and I was a good student. And I started to think about photography again, and it's like, well, I'm still taking pictures, like on my own, use my own camera, what have you. And I wanted to become a part of the newspaper staff. And so when I approached the newspaper staff teacher, she had told me about this place called the Manchester Craftsmen's Guild. And I was like, okay, so what is this place? She told me that I need to go there to get more instructions, to get more better with my photography skills. And at that time, the Craftsmen's Guild only had photography and ceramics. So I went down there, started some classes, and started doing photography at the Manchester Craftsmen's Guild. And that's me in the seats in the Manchester Craftsmen's Guild auditorium. With MCG, we have another entity with MCG Jazz. And so our teachers down at that time, Bill Winston and Lonnie Graham, had a visiting artist come to us. And here we are as high school age students sitting in the auditorium listening to this old guy with this big mustache and gray hair. And like, oh, okay, that's great. And listening to him talk about himself, just like how you guys are right now. Does anybody recognize this person? Even the instructors in here?
Look like
Anybody
Albert
recognize?
Einstein.
He looks like Albert Einstein. Yes, he looks like
I
a
thought
black
that's who that
version of
was, but then I was like, you're not that old. I thought that's who that was for a second.
For a second, yeah. No, but this gentleman, his name was Gordon Parks. So I'm just going to leave it right there. If you're on your computer, if you're near it, or if you can open up a tab, type in Google Gordon Parks, Gordonparks, Gordon Parks. And so as a high school age student, you see me right there, I'm like going, yeah, okay, cool, great. Listening to you, awesome. My friend right behind me, Aaron's taking this picture.
He did photography.
He did photography. What about his other notoriety? What else is he known for?
Music, writer, and film director.
Yes, yes, film director. Gordon Parks is, I'm trying to think of like who to equate it to in terminologies of today. Similar to like if Jay-Z came into your school and was doing a lecture. Gordon Parks. I'm like, oh my God. Later on, as I grew up and started to take film and do photography, I recognized that, oh my goodness, I was right there with Gordon Parks. Gordon Parks was talking to us as a class, talking about photography. So just to put that out there is like, wow, cool, check that out, check me out. So being a part of the newspaper staff, I was getting some really great insights into photography and be able to establish myself as being a photographer, which was way cool. Graduated, well, before I graduated, I went to this place called the Pittsburgh Governor School of the Arts, and that helped me to expand upon my artistry as a photographer as well. And with the Governor School of Arts, it was one of those things where it's a collective of artists, young budding artists, that are collectively together learning and producing their art. And so how these people get together is that it was a collection of people all throughout Pennsylvania. We all had to make application to go to the school for the summertime schooling. And there were over, I want to say 300 applicants for just to be in photography. And whenever I went to the tryouts, which was held in Pittsburgh, I think it was, I can't remember what university it was, but I saw so many people there and I was like, what in the world did I get myself into? And you had to be selected to go to the governor's school. And lo and behold, I was selected. I was like, woo, great. So that was awesome. After high school, I graduated and I went on to IUP, as was mentioned by Maddie earlier. And so when I went to IUP, I got myself involved with some other extracurricular things. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of convey is that whenever I started IUP, I was starting IUP as a art major. I thought, oh yeah, I'm doing photography. I love art and I want to continue on and pursue art. And so whenever I was graduating and applying to different colleges and universities, one of my first schools that I wanted to go to was Ohio University to study art and to continue on studying photography in particular. And so I got accepted and they offered me an award as well, a scholarship. And since I was out of state, since it was in Ohio and I was living in Pennsylvania, they can only offer me a few $100s for a scholarship. And so I had in one hand a scholarship for like $500 to go to Ohio University, which was my first choice college and which was a place that I wanted to go to. And I was so excited that I was accepted into. And then on the other hand, I had IUP. They were giving me a full scholarship. I was like, what? Full scholarship? And believe it or not, I had a tough summer trying to choose between Ohio University and IUP. And I chose, as you can see, IUP. When I went to IUP, I started off as an art major. And my first semester, they gave me 19 credits. For those of you that know anything about the credit system in college, and specifically being a freshman, 19 credits is a lot. That's like a super overload for a freshman. Coming from straight out of high school, first year in college, they gave me 16 or 19 credits, which include 2 studio classes. And that was crazy. But I didn't know nothing else about what I should have been doing. For some reason, they gave me 19 credits and I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And so I did that and that was rough and I didn't like it. So after that, I dropped down to, I think it was like 13 credits or 14 credits, just enough to say that I was a full-time student. And that was my worst academic year ever because I had so much free time. And it also gave me the understanding of, I didn't want to be an art major. So I transferred out of art major to being a communications media major. And so with communications media at that time, it was also television production, which was way cool. And so I started working at IUP TV and I got myself involved with the marching band for the first couple of years. And I was introduced to Victory Christian Assembly and was singing in a choir. And also I was just having fun, just living the college life and doing some really good things. And so doing the communications media television production, I graduated with that as my degree with a minor in consulting practices. I had to think about it because it was so long ago now. So that was that. And I really thought that being in the communications media television production, I was going to be like an actual on-air talent at like WPXI or what have you, but I had gotten an internship at WPTT TV, television 22.1 for those young ones, but back in the day it was just 22. And so I was working with Eddie Edwards and doing an internship there, and I was the public affairs intern. And within that internship, that helped me to figure out what I did not want to do, which was a good thing. And so during that time, I was thinking, what am I going to do? I'm doing this communications media television production, and I'm pursuing it, and I'm getting a degree in it, but what am I going to do with this? And so it took me a while to try to figure things out, and I made applications to all these different television places, as well as Harpo Industries back in the day, and nothing came out of it. But that didn't stop me and deter me. So fast forward.
Sorry, Mr. Jermaine, real quick. We had a question in the comments from Michael, an aspiring filmmaker, who asked, what kinds of classes did you take as a communications major?
Oh, see, now you have to. I'm trying to remember.
We were talking about that walk down memory lane. This is going to be poking in the bushes
that's
now.
going to be a real walk down memory lane. So whenever you're accepted in college into a degree program, they have specific courses that you have to follow and maintain in order for you to get that degree. And so those were the courses that I did take, as well as going into the television side and taking some courses that kind of interest me, and also fulfill different credits inside that that college. And so whenever you do start college and they give you your kind of like your directory of classes, that book is like your Bible. That was what was taught to us, that once you enter into the program, that catalog of classes and courses is your Bible. No matter what happens afterwards, if you like to take some newer classes, and if you do take those newer classes, make sure that they are accredited to your curriculum study. So it's a nice way of saying that just basically follow the courses that you're going to be told to take, and take those courses in order for you to get that degree. And there's a lot of different history of movies that I had taken, and there was some practical studies as well that I did too. So there's some fun stuff, and some things that whenever I was doing like my internship, like I was saying, it helped me to understand that I had a problem in the issue of seeing death and destruction and hate and everything that we're seeing right now being broadcast by a person on television with a straight face, no emotions, and the next sentence going on and talking about the weather. It's like nothing happened. And that's not me to do that. And so if that's you, that's cool, that's great. It wasn't for me to be doing. And so you just have to know yourself, know your limitations. That's one of the things that I want to kind of like drive home in this talk, is to know yourself, know your limitations, know what you like, what you don't like. And if you don't know what you like and don't know what you want to do, you'll figure it out, and you'll have a good inkling as into what deters you from being your best self. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome. I see that there's other responses down there. Are there any questions I need to answer right now?
Maddie had mentioned that at Pitt, you're not allowed to take more than 18 credits, and wow.
Yeah.
And that wow is echoed from everyone else here who's ever taken college classes.
Yeah. First year semester in college, they gave me 19 credits. I don't think they wanted me to stay. Which is funny. That's another point too, because later on, whenever I switched from my art ed major to communications media major, they said, oh, well, you need to take an art appreciation course. I was like, what? I was an art major. How more appreciative can you get? And so they're like, oh, okay, all right. I was like, oh, you're trying to make me be a 5th year senior. Like, no, I'm out. So yeah, make sure you take a note of that course description and follow it too, because who knows, they'll try to do that. Nowadays, they're probably a little bit better at not trying to make it as obvious as them trying to get money from you. But back then it was like kind of obvious, like, yeah, we're trying to stick you here for another year so we get more money from you. Like, no, you're not. Don't play that with me. So fast forward, Manchester Craftsmen's Guild. And so now I'm going to talk about the Manchester Craftsmen's Guild, what I do here, and all that good stuff. And so that's the Manchester Craftsmen's Guild, our building itself. I found this image and I'll read it to you. Never did I think that 20 years later that I would be the one teaching photography to Manchester Craftsmen's Guild students. And that was signed back in 2009. And fast forward, it's 2021. So I'm still here. Woo! It was really cool and interesting because once I had graduated from IUP, I came back here just to say hi to people. It's like, hey, I graduated. Look at me. Yay, I'm looking for a job in communications, media, television production. Yeah. And at the time, one of my mentors, Lonnie Graham, was like, well, do you want to work here until you find something? I was like, sure, I'll stay here for like a year tops, something like that, while I'm trying to find something. And it took me a long time. It was kind of discouraging too, even though it was only like the course of the summertime after I graduated in May. The whole summer I was still unemployed. I was like, I thought the skies were going to open and be like people floodgating at me like, hey, we want you to work at our TV place. I'm like, yeah, that didn't happen. And so whenever I accepted a position here, I started as a lab tech. Which was coming in and just basically cleaning up around the place and mixing chemicals and just doing like regular grunt work, but you know, nothing like really exotic and lavish. And so I was working here part-time as a lab tech, as well as still working at the movie theater and doing other odd jobs of photography and things like that. So over the years, I'll just say, I developed from being a lab tech to doing a part-time instructor and then a full-time instructor, and then went to being an administrative assistant for the Arts Collaborative, and then from Arts Collaborative, administrative assistant, being administrative assistant for the whole entire programs of Manchester Craftsmen's Guild Youth and Arts. And then after that, I got hired.
You said one more time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Which part of my progression?
You said you went from a part-time instructor to a full-time instructor. What did you say after that?
Part-time instructor to full-time instructor to administrative assistant. Kind of like the secretary. But being a male, I'm not a secretary, I'm an administrative assistant. Let it be known. So yes, administrative assistant for the Arts Collaborative program. And that program was a program that was based upon infusing the arts in regular curriculum, like math and science and social studies, but having like an artistic flair in those core subjects as well. So we infused that, and I was the administrative assistant for that program. Then I also became the administrative assistant for all of our programs that we had at the time. And so there had come a point in time where there was an instructor leaving from photography, and they were looking to hire someone, and one of the other managers at the time was like, well, what about Jermaine? He does photography. And I was like, it was kind of funny once I found that out that that's how it happened. I was like, what are you talking about? I've been here all the time and saying that I want to be a full-time photography instructor, and you're just like, oh, what about? I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So it happened, and so I became the photography instructor, and that was back in the days when we had 7 photography instructors, and then fast forward some time, I had gotten to the position of photography coordinator, which meant I was in charge of everything in photography. Then we had some other stuff happening where I lost that title, but still was doing a lot of that same responsibility. And so now currently I am still the photography instructor, and I am now the only one here because of COVID. We had some layoffs and things like that. So being a photography instructor over the course of those years, it's been humbling and honoring at the same time. It's just like, wow, cool. I can't believe that I'm doing this after all these years. And so, yes, Manchester Craftsmen's Guild was started by Bill Strickland, and he's actually still doing that today, which is making clay on a potter's wheel. I just filmed them about a couple of hours ago. I had heard like a lot of jazz music coming in from the ceramic studio. It's like, what? Who's playing all that music? And it was loud too. And so I went in there and I was like, Bill. He's like, hey man, how you doing? I was like, cool. Hey, nice to see you. And so I was like, can I start recording you? He's like, sure. And he took off his mask and he just like stopped there and posed. And I was like, no, I wanted you to be working, not just like a posed picture. And so he went off and started putting his mask back on, sat down, and I recorded him. And so you might see that if you're on Facebook. So anyway, Manchester Craftsmen's Guild was started off by Bill Strickland and doing ceramics. And he also started with doing photography, not in this specific building, but years ago, back in, I think it was like 68, it was in a row house over in the Buena Vista area on the north side. And so fast forward some years, after going out and doing some fundraising, he had been able to collect some money to build this building that I'm sitting in right now. And so Manchester Craftsmen's Guild, we have 4 different studios. We have ceramics, we have photography, we have digital arts, as well as design arts. And I'm teaching in photography. And one of the things I love to do, and I'm still happy that we are doing, is 35mm film photography. And we also are doing digital photography as well. And these are some of the classes that I've taught over the years and continue to teach. A lot of film camera stuff, as well as just doing like multi-process type of film photography too. And some examples of digital photography. And as one of your students has attested to, I've been in one of my classes and love going out, taking pictures, going to different places, and doing digital photography.
We had a question from Danielle, actually. Do you all teach classes online as well, or just in person?
Yes, we're doing online as well. And so with our online learning, that's what I was trying to figure out. She had said 2020. I was like, okay, so I guess that was a virtual class, but that was the class right before COVID. But yes, we are doing virtual classes. And when we started doing virtual classes, that was last year, back in March. We had started off not knowing anything, and now we're like pros at it. So I'm happy that we've went through that gestation period. And so, yeah, we're getting ready to go into this hybrid type of learning now. We just got word today that since Pittsburgh Public Schools might be going back full time, or at least like in type of a hybrid area as well, we're going to follow suit and do the same thing in late April, starting to do hybrid classes. And so how we're managing our virtual learning right now from this past year is that we'll have students come down to the Craftsmen's Guild to get cameras and get their materials and take it home. And then we're talking to them online, just like how we are right now, and teaching them, instructing them on what to do. But this is an image from pre-pandemic, whenever students were able to be in our facilities and learn about the camera. And I won't do this, but I want to do this to ask Danielle if she remembers the basic definition of a camera. You remember that from our camera class?
A little bit. I don't think so.
Looking at this image, what are they using? What are those cylinders?
Is it art?
It's art. They're, okay, I'll just give it to you. What they're doing is they're decorating their box. And so the basic definition of a camera is a light type box with a hole in it. And the basic definition that I like to say with photography is painting with lights. Cool. All righty. So with their light type boxes with a hole in it, which are called pinhole cameras, these are some of their examples of what they were able to produce. And so whenever you're using a pinhole camera, it produces what is called a negative. In this case, it was recording that negative image on a paper. And so whenever you flip it over onto another paper that has not been exposed, it turns into a positive. So I like to say, and we like to say in the film industry, taking a negative and making it to a positive. This is an image inside our dark room where they take the paper through the chemicals to produce their actual images. And with the camera being a light type box with a hole in it, you can see this young lady, she has a pumpkin. So anything that you can make light tight and have just a little hole in it, you can turn it into a camera. And that was a pumpkin camera.
Did she really develop photos that she took with a pumpkin camera?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Doing. Yep.
That's awesome.
She's excited with her results from her pinhole camera. And we've also entertained a whole bunch of different groups that would come down here to the Craftsmen's Guild to do different workshops with us. And we also had the opportunity to make our own laser engraved cameras. Other different processes. This is a cyanotype in making a photogram, where you take light sensitive paper, coat it with the cyanotype chemistry on it, putting objects on top of it, sitting it out into the sun, allowing it to bake, come into the dark room, washing it out. So you can see like this blue and white type of an image.
Real quick, for those laser engraved wooden box cameras that you made, did you all just work with do you have the laser engravers at Manchester Craftsmen's Guild for the woodworking?
Yeah.
Oh, that's very, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Cool.
So
thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. With our digital arts. And so with the digital arts, they're doing like 3D printing as well as engraving and things like that.
Very cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so not only we deal with 35 millimeter, but we also deal with other types of cameras. This is called a 4x5 camera. And we have a student that was on a field trip, taking a picture of her using that camera on Mount Washington. And they produce images that can be enlarged as big as this. This is a 20x24 image that this young lady did of her then boyfriend. And now these are some images of me teaching. So we're teaching, or I'm teaching both film photography as well as digital cameras and digital photography. Examples of the student learning. And with our digital aspect, I'm teaching them about doing macro photography as well. We had a person come in, his name is Dan Dexter, helped me out to learn about macro photography, and with that, just continuing that on, and was able to take students and teach them how to do the same thing as well. And like I said at the beginning, I love taking pictures that are long exposures and dealing with the light and skies and things like that. We have one of our former students, Lori Hepner, who now teaches at the University of Pennsylvania, Penn State rather. And she is notorious for her, what's that called? The pixel stick. And so the bottom right are some images from using the pixel stick, as well as the ones on the top as well. And with the basic definition of photography, painting with lights, you have your shutter speed open for a long duration of time, and then you go around with a light, like a flashlight or a pixel stick or whatever that illuminates some light, and it captures that light trail onto your camera. Love doing studio work. This is a friend of mine, Clive. He was able to bring in his studio equipment into our studio, back portrait studio, and talk to the students and teach them a thing or two about his style of portrait photography. This is also in the back portrait studio, and some students jumping with a fast shutter speed. Multiplicity, taking a long exposure, but within the studio itself, turn off all the lights and have a flashing or strobing effect going on. And so you move in different places and make it look like this, like you have multiple images of yourself. Once again, incorporating the long exposures. And over the course of years, with Manchester Craftsmen Guild, we're kind of famous, and people like to know like how we do what we do. And so they come down and video record and interview us and do things like how I'm doing right now as well. And so this was an example of that. With teaching our students, we're teaching them about editing their images as well. And these are a couple of shots that I'll show you of me teaching students how to edit. And as I alluded to before, we love to take our students on field trips. And with me growing up in the Manchester Craftsmen Guild, that was one of the things that was instilled in me. Learning about the camera is cool, but you also need some kind of like quote unquote field experience, and taking field trips is how you develop your skills even further. And so I love to still take students on field trips and go to different places. And so now these are some images of different places that we've gone on, different size classes, going out, both film as well as digital classes going on our field trips. Of course, these are our posed images or group shots of our different classes. And I was talking to Jeremy about, wow, this is cool, going back down memory lane. And so digging some of these pictures out and seeing some of the students, I'm like, oh, I remember that student. Oh, I wonder how they're doing. Oh, I remember going to the Freedom Corner and taking them on a hill district. Oh, that was a cool trip. And also going to Ohio Pow. And when we first got those EQT vans, oh, look at that. That's way cool. Just a whole bunch of back down memory lane. And some people, you may recognize this place on the campuses of Pitt in the nationality rooms. Taking them to Ohio Pow. And when we first got those EQT vans, before the side wraps were even put on there, it's so funny because whenever we get funding to get vehicles. The vehicles are just like, oh, those are our babies. We don't want them to go out, but we do want them to go out. And I'm like, can I get one? Well, where are you going? Ohio, pal? And like, what? You're going to travel to Ohio, pal, with these gas-powered vehicles? There's no gas-powered stations out in Ohio, pal. Well, we'll put it to the test and see how long we can go with these. And so I was a guinea pig. We made it back and forth, no problems. And I just love to be able to take the students out for these types of ventures and go into different places. As being a photographer, as Danielle can probably attest to as well, whenever you're here at the Craftsmen's Guild, we have a beautiful facility and we have our wonderful fountain and everything like that. But being here for like 20-something years, just imagine if we didn't go out on field trips looking at the same fountain for like 20-something years and like, yay, the fountain. So I love to go on field trips. And that was instilled to me by my instructors too at the time whenever I was in high school. And we went to Ohio POW. We went to other places that I'm taking our students to as well. And one of the things why I really go to Ohio POW and specifically Falling Water is because within the Bill Strickland story, that's where his mentor, Frank Ross, had taken him to as well, as he was in high school too, on a trip, and they had gone to see Falling Water, and they had a moment out there. And so I was like, well, I want to try to carry on that tradition and taking our students to Falling Waters, and so they can have that experience and seeing more to life than the city itself. So that's why we do our trips and taking them to different museums as well, beyond the Pittsburgh museums. And then also within Pittsburgh itself, there's other people, community members that you may get in contact with, networking with, and a friend of mine who is a photographer, who is also a police officer. He's a forensic photographer. He was able to give us a tour around his place and show us what he does as a crime scene photographer. So he says that he only gets called out if someone dies. And like, ooh, great, ooh. So I would not want to do that, but someone may want to do that. So yeah, there's people out there that do that type of thing. And if that's your thing, hey, more power to you. Not for me. But with our trips, we love to take our trips to Yellowstone National Park. We're thinking about and planning on taking students this year as well in August. And so our trips that we offer to our students are totally free for our students. When you're enrolled in our programs, you have the opportunity to go on these types of trips. And so you have to make application and be selected to go on them. But I started doing these trips to Yellowstone, some years ago. We had taken a group of students out to Yellowstone National Park. As a matter of fact, the very first one that I was offered to go to, I did not go to, and that was whenever I was starting to work here at the Craftsmen's Guild. And so I was very apprehensive being straight out of college, going on a very long trip with people that I didn't know. I only knew one person, which was my former instructor, Bill Winston, and he was going, but there was like 12 to 14 more people going, and I knew none of them. And you wanted me to travel cross country with you all in a van? I was like, I'm good. I'll take my first day of work in September. And so that's what I did whenever I started working. But they took a trip out to Yellowstone that year, and they had a wonderful time. And so some years later came the second opportunity, and I was like, okay, I'll do it this time because I know more people, and I'm still like kind of an introverted person. However, I may not come across as that way, but I am still introverted. But I did that trip, and whenever I did that trip, I was a photography instructor as well as part-time administrative assistant. And so with me having an administrative role, they had me book all the different stops. And so what I did was I thought about myself and what my comfortability level was. I don't really like camping. So I'm going to schedule one day at the hotel, the next day camping, one day hotel, camping, hotel, camping. And we did that for 21 days. Well, not 21 day hotel camping, but we went out there and we stayed in the camping site while we were in Yellowstone. And then on the way back, we did the camping hotel again. So that was really cool. We spent that trip for 21 days going cross country out in vans. We took 10 students and the 4 of us instructors went out there, had a fabulous time looking at different things, following the Lewis and Clark Trail and that type of stuff. Then fast forward some more years later, we had the opportunity to go back to Yellowstone again, where this time we had a funder who was able to give us some fundings to fly out there this time and stay in cabins. And that's what we did. And that's what we do from now on, is to fly out there and we take students and we just take in all the awesomeness of Yellowstone National Park. So with our photography in particular, the students, they learn about photography, they go out and take their pictures, come back, process or download their images and edit their images, and then they learn how to matte and frame their images for exhibitions. And this is me doing a demonstration on how to matte and frame their works for exhibition. Young lady starting to do hers as well. And these are some images of our students exhibiting their works, both here at the Manchester Craftsmen's Guild as well as other art galleries throughout Pittsburgh. So with us being a Manchester Craftsmen's Guild, it's awesome that we have like different networking abilities to say, hey, you have some space to feature our student work. Like, yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, let's do that. And so that's how we're able to showcase our student images throughout the city of Pittsburgh and other art spaces. One of our students giving a gallery talk of his work during our accomplishment show. So with the Manchester Craftsmen's Guild, we have our replications, and it's really interesting where Bill Strickland, whenever he started the Manchester Craftsmen's Guild, he was like, every city needs to have one of these places, a place where students feel safe. They're able to come down and do some artwork in a really awesome facility and have actual materials to work with too that are good materials, not like junky leftover popsicle sticks, or not to saying that popsicle sticks are bad or not, but just a little bit more professional equipment and materials to use. And so with that in mind, fast forward years later, we have replication sites, and we have those in different places, and these places that you see, and some more that are still in the planning stages as well. Some of those planning stages are now in full effect, specifically like the one in Akko, Israel, that has been open for a few years now. And with our replications, when we first started doing this, we were able to go to these places and to pitch to them our ideas of what they should be doing. And some places they were like, well, we would like to do photography. It's like, okay, well, we'll send one of our photography instructors to do like a project with you guys. And so I was fortunate to do a few of those with some of our replicated sites. And this is one with Brockway Center for Technology up in Brockway, Pennsylvania. So I went up there, met with the students, and was able to teach them about the photography and do some digital photography work with them. And then they came down to Manchester Craftsmen's Guild like a couple weeks later, and I did some identity photogram experimentations and projects with them too. And so those are some images of them as a group with their images. And then we had an exhibition of their works up at Brockway, and then they opened up their center, and now they're full in effect for a few years now. This is one in Newbridge, which is Cleveland, and this was really cool because we were able to take our MCG students to Cleveland to meet the Newbridge students. And so to have these two the home center going into the replicated site and having an interaction with them, that was way cool. So with the Manchester Craftsmen's Guild, like I was saying, we get involved in a whole bunch of different things. And with Bill Strickland, he's now famous, notorious for being the entrepreneur that he is. And so Senator Casey honored him, and Bill was asked if he could bring a student or former student to be a part of this celebration and honor. And he chose me to come up to present about my interactions and my my history with the organization. And so here's the two of us on the Capitol building, which was very interesting now. But that's me talking to a whole group of people about Manchester Craftsmen's Guild and what we do here and what we try to do for the youth in our city. I'm looking all studious. So yes, that's me. That's the Manchester Craftsmen's Guild. And so, yeah. Are there any questions? Any other questions pop up? I can't find it over thingy.
Anybody have any last questions for Mr. Germaine? He is a wealth of knowledge for anybody who's looking to get into any of those fields. So seize the opportunity. Okay. Well, thank you. Oh,
it was
Rhea
one from Rabrea. Sorry.
No, all you.
Okay.
Rabrea wanted to know how she could join your program.
All right. So this is for high school age students. I believe you guys are all high school?
Yes,
all right,
yes,
cool.
Sir.
So our sessions are already in session right now. However, if you go to our mcgyouth&arts.org, you'll be able to go in there and see when our next sessions are, which is going to be this summer. We were just talking about that today, that we will be offering some summer courses, and photography will be one of the ones that I'm going to be offering for the summertime. So that's awesome. See how that actually operates and works with the summer program is that we have middle school as well as high school. This past year, we did strictly middle school within photography. So this year, yeah, I can do another high school class. So I'm happy about that. I like middle school, but I love high school. Middle school is a little bit challenging. So to be able to do another middle school program, not middle school, high school program for photography in the summertime is really awesome. And now that the world is starting to open up again, I can see more opportunity for us to be able to do more trips and go to different places and take a whole lot of pictures in different places, and seeing like, I would probably see like the difference from pre-COVID to now with all the different things that has happened or not happened in nature. So, yep, that's how you join us, and it is free. Tell your other high school age students too that this is a free program. You can talk to Danielle that I think it is a really awesome program. One of those programs where once you're involved in it and start doing it, you're like really appreciative of it. If you're just like kind of thinking about it, you're like, well, whatever. It's a free program. It's probably not worth nothing because it's free. No, totally opposite. It's one of those things where once you start doing things and being involved in it, it's like, whoa, they're giving me this camera to use for free. They're giving me free film and instructions and anything that I need to further my career, they're helping me out with. We have our career specialist too that helps out people to think about college or think about trade school, think about after high school, generically speaking, to get themselves on a better place. And so, yeah.
Thank you. And how long do the programs last over the summer?
For the summer program, it's a 2-week session. And if you wanted to do the other classes as well, you can do that. There's going to be 3 sessions. And so each 3 sessions are 2 weeks. And that's going to be starting in the late June. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Germaine. We really appreciate your time. I know Trinity just had to go, unfortunately, but the rest of us that are here, could we have a, if not cameras on, then mics on? Thank you, and a little round of applause for Mr.
Hi,
Germaine.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Germaine. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
All right.
Thank you so much. Great seeing you.
Thank you.
Great seeing you too. You take care.
You too.
All righty.
That was great.